On the one hand, this conference will report on the achievements of the last 4 years in the area of dual vocational education in our country. Also, how the attitudes of employers, the school, the students and the parents changed. On the other hand, at the backdrop of this change, we have to outline the guidelines for the future development of dual education. We'll be able to hear very interesting discussions between representatives of the government, the school, the businesses. We'll hear the opinion of the students and learn more about the Swiss experience in dual track education. In the beginning, we'll start with several addresses. The Minister of Education and Science will join us a little bit later in the afternoon. Now I'm going to invite Her Excellency, the Swiss Ambassador to Bulgaria.
Dear Mr. Ivanov, Director of the Central Coordination Unit at the Council of Ministers, dear Mr. Boni Bonev, Chairman of the Bulgarian Swiss Chamber of Commerce, dear representatives of the Ministries of Education, of Economy, of Labor and Social Policy, dear teachers and school directors, business representatives, representatives of the employers' organization and trade unions, dear Swiss guests, ladies and gentlemen. I think if you didn't know at this point, you already understood that dual education is about a lot of partners. Well, the Swiss-Bulgarian project on dual education called Domino is actually one of the smallest projects in the Bulgarian-Swiss cooperation program with regard to the financing. But it's one of the projects with the biggest importance for the economic development of Bulgaria. I would like first to recall some of the achievements of this Domino project. It started, as you know, it started in 2015, and the main objective was to create a replicable model and build capacity in Bulgaria for the implementation of dual vocational education based on the best practices and achievements of the Swiss dual education model. 4 years later, I think we can be very proud because the results have actually exceeded all figures planned in this project. Well, I have to recall some of the figures. We have 32 schools which have introduced dual training with 170 partner companies and over 1,600 students in 19 different Bulgarian cities. For me, what is really relevant and impressive is then more than 70% of the students graduating from Domino actually stay in the same companies where they have been trained. And another very important figure for me is that on these 170 companies, only a very small number are actually Swiss companies. It means 5. It means that this new model is really corresponding to a need here in Bulgaria, to the need of Bulgarian companies mainly, because the vast majority of the companies are Bulgarian companies. Another important element to be mentioned is that during actually last year, legislative changes have been introduced in the national legislation what does it mean? It means that now it's really a Bulgarian model. It's not a foreign model. It's now really dual education is a Bulgarian model. As I mentioned at the beginning, Domino also showed good models of cooperation between all stakeholders. In the first 2 years of the project, the dual VET forum have been established. It has been organized by the Bulgarian Swiss Chamber of Commerce for all stakeholders to discuss and agree on a number of topics for the smooth implementation of dual education in the country. Since last year, the work of the forum continues within the newly established Consultative Council on VET under the Minister of Education and Science, supported again by the Bulgarian Swiss Chamber of Commerce. I would like to say this opportunity to underline the importance of the role of also of local Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which are really an important partner connecting between business, enterprises, schools, and local authorities, and also authorities at the national level. Well, it's a success. We have exceeded what we expected at the beginning 5 years ago. But what about now? Now, the main challenge is how to keep what have been achieved and continue with the development and fine-tuning of the Bulgarian system of dual education. It's actually the next steps are in your hands now, in the hands of all different partners and parties to this quite sophisticated system of dual education, but a system which has proven to be a real asset in the development of a functioning economy, in the development of an education system corresponding to the needs of the economy. I thank you for your attention.
Благодарим ви, Ваше Превъзходителство.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now a few words on the part of Mr. Ivan Ivanov, head of the Central Coordinating Unit at the Council of Ministers. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, allow me in the very beginning to thank you for the invitation and the honor to be part of the second national conference on dual education path for opportunities. I'd like, in the very beginning, to say a few words regarding the place of education. Just recently, we launched a big exercise which is connected with programming the funds from the next EU funding period. Our task was to research several models of countries who were able to achieve fast convergence and were able to do this in an accelerated pace. All models that we examined were more or less unique to the specific countries. But if there is something common between them, it was that they all started with putting education, identifying education as a priority. So there isn't a single model where education is not a key pillar of accelerated economic development. So naturally, one of the main priorities in education is that it matches the real needs of the economy. I really have a hot spot in my heart for dual education. I graduated from some school. I remembered how good this vocational education system was in the 90s and the prestige of this system. Over the years, however, this image faded away to some extent, probably because of the transition period. However, now is the right time to have it put as a and consider it as a priority. And that's where the Swiss facility steps in for support. I don't have huge experience, no more than 10 years for foreign funding under the cohesion policy, but I know that this is one of the projects where we have been able to achieve a lot with relatively small resources. This tells us that when you have clear-cut priorities, when you have a good teacher, then you can succeed. Her Excellency mentioned some figures, and I will mention them. More than 1,600 students, the cooperation of 170 companies, 32 schools. But apart from statistics, the most important thing is that we've been able to achieve a great model. We have put the very foundation which we'll use to build upon in the next few years. And talking about the next few years, we are already starting the Domino 2 project funded with 24 million Bulgarian levs. As regards the next program, our preliminary conversation with the Ministry of Education tells us that vocational education and dual education will be one of the main pillars of this future program, which in fact has to try to continue the reform in the education system. Ladies and gentlemen, over the next few years, we'll encounter serious challenges. Whole professions will disappear because the development of technologies will change everything. Besides that, one of the main reasons for young people to leave our country is that we are still not providing them with good prospects and good enough education. So in the context of the programming for the next programming period, we have the goal to achieve a lot for a very short period of time. This can happen only with investment in high technologies, innovation, economic transformation, and reindustrialization of economy. However, if we lack the necessary qualified people to do this, we will not succeed. So right now, I would like to thank and underline the great cooperation with the Swiss country, to Her Excellency the Ambassador and her predecessors, the Ministry of Education, and specifically the team involved in the dual education project. And rest assured that you can rely on our future support as well. Thank you very much.
Now, we're going to have the view of the sociologists, and we'll hear how attitudes have changed. That is the attitude of businesses. Ivan Semyonov, representing Gallup International Sociological Agency. Good morning. My name is Ivan Semyonov. It's my pleasure to be involved in this event. Your Excellency, representatives from the various authorities and institutions, ladies and gentlemen, we are now involved in a large-scale research and survey of domino and the effects and impacts it has said we are surveying hundreds of companies, both involved in the projects and otherwise, and schools. At the onset of such an initiative, we always prepare draft some information about the basic knowledge and attitudes and identify the hypotheses that we are then afterwards going to explore. I'd like to share with you what we have identified so far. We started interviewing businesses that are not involved directly in this project in order to see the general view. I would like to say at the onset that the news is good, but I'm going to also identify potential problems and threats, and you will see them clearly. You're going to have this presentation afterwards to consult it. So, general awareness of dual-track education. A high degree of awareness has been registered as a declaration, as a statement. The companies that are represented by key figures in the sectors and members of the boards of management, HR, specialists, etc., decision makers, generally claims an automatically positive attitude. This is no surprise to us, but the devil is in the details because it is automatic. So there may be a point in time in which dual-track education, learning by doing, become a slogan and be referred to in a positive manner, but in a very formalistic way. This is a threat. Some of the major functions of dual-track education are well known, and awareness results from direct experience with educational forms that we would inadvertently refer to as dual-track education, or educational forms which in some way try to draw on something like that, something like dual-track education. So let's move on. Most of the responses are positive, very valuable. I've always been in favor of such forms of training, etc. You will hear many of these refrains. However, one of the respondents says, a major IT specialist, why is it so good to have early profiling, early specialization? This is a challenge to respond to. There are plenty of responders who say the school is not only skills and practice and experience, it's an environment, so beware. Because when we put students very early in a certain on a certain track, we push them on a certain track, we might be limiting them in the long run. So I'm now thinking of those little details that may be an issue. So somebody says here the environment will suffer from this form of training because because the person becomes a member of a team that will be unchangeable for years to come. So this is inertia, and this is the skepticism of inertia. I'm saying again that these companies here are a good point of reference because they were not involved in a domino project. And the school, we have the school versus the university, this dichotomy. So there are a lot of people that criticize the emphasis on higher education. And this is an opportunity for DTE and for domino and for the legislative changes. Employers clearly claim that the best programmers out there have no university degree. So, but because we have had the feeling that without a university degree, one is a second-rate specialist. But this project brings trust, that brings confidence in what Ms. Ivanov has just put in this system that used to be developed, and we should rediscover with our attempts for reindustrialization. It is a system which says, which claims that vocational training is as prestigious and as needed as a university education. Some more quotes from our responders. It's a modern form. It's difficult to find good specialists and professionals. It is a good combination of theory and practice. We are aware of that, but we used to have it. One of the representative claims. I don't want to quote names, of course, so watch out. We are rediscovering the wheel. We have people coming from Switzerland or from the moon just to give us, to explain us things that we know very well. But it's a general view shared by the businesses in an automatic manner. It is this attitude. We used to have it. Why do we have to be taught to apply it again? You will come across this very often. And there is criticism voiced on the educational system at large. There's this irritation of the businesses on human resources policy in the country in general. And let me specify it here that it's very difficult to take VET away from HR policy and from the opinions of the overall political and economic situation in the country. Good news are not interested. Good news is not appealing, and I'm aware of this very well because I used to be a journalist. People don't want to share good news. This wonderful practice, the wonderful outcome from a domino should be communicated in a very good way. And good efforts are required, and I can see that efforts are being invested to communicate those results because our society desperately needs good news. Those that are the economic drivers, and believe me, these were the responders of to our survey, were key leaders, and they share banal skepticism. There is generally a positive feeling, but we have here this statement. It's not up to the business to write curricula and syllabi. We have our job to do, and of course, the government, the state here is generalized, and the businesses don't want to step into their territory. So we need to keep our cool. So difficulties associated with DTE. A mismatch between expectations and actual skills. Such an activity cannot overcome the mismatch between demand and supply because companies demand skills. We can't, another quote, we can't make a certain deal because we don't have the staff. So this may be the generational criticism of the old looking on the young. So they, another quote, they graduate with blank heads, with just shallow certificates or diplomas. It's becoming very fashionable and prestigious to talk about Bulgarian education in such a ridiculing way. This is why projects like this one and efforts like this one are critically important. Difficulties associated with DT. I don't know to what extent this may be true because I'm not very much abreast with the legal part of it, but they say they claim here that it's very hard to conclude employment contracts. And you can see the quotes. We used to be interested in mainstream schools in order to hire apprentices, but unfortunately the Inspectorate of Labor bans contracts. So we should consider the potential issues related to the legal regulation of labor. So, mind you, awareness is maybe an issue here, and some lame excuses are being sought. So this should be changed. Some more threats. No attitude, no work habits and work attitude. 90% of young people do not have this attitude and work discipline. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a stepwise approach rather than a continuous change. It's a generation that has a different type of network culture. This new generation has mosaic knowledge that has access to a lot of information. And this generation does not meet well established attitudes. And this is good, but businesses are extremely skeptical about the way young people can concentrate, the way they can be focused, and the kind of habits they have. This is something that the Domino project should address to the extent possible, because otherwise we're going to have a generation gap. We made a large scale project in which we studied the generation from 19 to 29, and the choice with respect to work discipline and planning life in general have been transformed, and we should consider the life trajectory and do the young people know where they are heading. This should be a new focus. And as you see in the next couple of slides, we should consider this in the because one of our respondents called it this confusion or general confusion of the young. The benefits of DTE: easier supply of staff for the businesses without job adverts, and the business receives ready-made staffs, and pragmatically the businesses see these forms as extremely positive and helpful. No need to make a job advert. They are saying it, they refer to it all the time. We win time because we can adjust, we can make the apprentices adapt very quickly. So time, money, administrative burden, all this is has been identified as a positive. But manufacturing is overlooked at the expense of other sectors. Now, look. So manufacturing is the most difficult, and now we have to become lawyers, market experts, and economists. This is fashionable now. And the quote continues, it's extremely dissatisfying. Do we market our country well? I hope we will not be affected negatively by that. And we are considering setting up our own center for training of our future professionals. So that is, we will raise our own staff. We are doing it nonetheless, although unofficially. This is an HR specialist who said this. So this is another problem that we have here. The problem whether companies should set up their own training centers or work with VET schools. So which are the incentives? The financial one, of course. And one more thing. Again, promoting manufacturing branches. One of the responders, who is into technological parks, he said that they needed more, that there should be given more freedom to school principals. Let them promote specialties by giving them fancy names. If it is metal cutting specialty, there may be some better, more fancy ways of calling this specialty. Self-criticism can be heard, can be sensed, of course. And again, it's not all about money, it's about the quality of life. VAT always is a step towards considering the environment, the social situation. In the 1960s and 1970s, a lot of surveys in Bulgaria were conducted about young people in the villages with respect to industrialization and urbanization. And one of the major factors identified back then for young people leaving the rural area was not the shortage of money or the poor conditions. There was no good environment, no status, nobody to marry, if you like, because this is one of the responses. And again, we have this situation again. We make great professionals. We have good salaries, one of the highest in salary. We have European salaries, but people want to live in Sofia, and they leave us. So it's good to consider the rural administration and to refer this to the rural administration, because this disparity in social conditions is always claimed as a major factor. When there is no social mobility available, social fulfillment or general interaction, communication, networking, then we can't retain staff, and staff retention of employees is a major issue. Respondents claim that they prepare professionals and then they leave. So this has been the Bulgarian experience. A lot of Bulgarian companies have been involved in this project, so it should be explained how companies can benefit from their leading position. An interesting detail should be quoted here. Sometimes it's good for a young person to have no first employment rather than poor first employment. And then we'll see in the quantity the instructor, the figure of the instructor. They imagine because of the traditional craftsmanship genesis of our businesses, the instructor, the mentor, the craftsman, the tradesman. Nobody pays attention to apprentices because there is no instructor to work with them. Of course, these are again automatic, formalistic views. Now, next one. Next question. Interaction between companies and VETs. The link is severed. There is no bridge. There is just a wide river flowing between us with no bridge. So this is some of their mindset. We've been invited to meetings with students at universities, but never at schools. So again, these are the claims of our respondents. And again, VET's vocational schools are overlooked. Risks for students, poor pay or poor first initial pay, and poor balance between in-company practice and school training, cautiousness, extra cautiousness. Some additional topics: the demographic crisis. Somebody says we have a desperate demand for professionals, prestige, salary, and then getting to the most important conclusions. Dual-track education is well known. There are cases of attempts of applying them, even if it is not officialized. Again, I'm reiterating that these respondents did not participate in the Domino project. Shortage of staff, high demand of professionals, absence of good link between businesses and education, and sometimes companies prefer to have their own academies, in-house training centers. The main difficulties and threats are related to employment contracts with minors. Students need more practice and less theory. And the main communicator is identified in the capacity of unemployment bureaus. So all this is to show that projects like this one are right where they should be. And let me remind you that the way of living of young people nowadays give them more and more temptations and options to live abroad, and more difficulties to focus. It's up to us in the years to come to manage to overcome what the businesses see as a defect of this new generation. And one more thing. Projects like this one, as successful as they may be, cannot succeed on their own. And we badly need a real regional policy, not just building infrastructure. We need to have a real attempt to have rural development in order to overcome those striking differences and disparity. And there is intersectoral, horizontal coordination badly needed with policies of labor and social development. And last but not least, all the efforts made are encouraging. And let me sum up on a positive note. When we started making this survey, we had some initial interviews with many companies. While we were comparing our databases, we realized that there is active attitude towards this project. The worst problem is formalizing activities. There is no such thing in the Domino project, and this is the best thing we can report about it. Soon we are going to publish the quantities of the figures and the statistic associated with this survey, which will be very helpful for making other conclusions. Thank you.
Well, it is possible now to have a brief discussion, impressive presentation. Thank you very much. You outlined the most important topic. And of course, if we do not decide to have a discussion, we'll have a brief half an hour coffee break and continue after that. So yes, we'll resume work in half an hour from now. Thank you. Are closely connected with the achievements of the Domino project. Besides this, we have also been able to create capacity in the country that accumulated sufficient knowledge and be able to continue the introduction of the dual education system in Bulgaria after finishing the project. 112 teachers were trained, 199 instructors, and 25 DTs. Mr. Semyonov, the previous speaker, said that there are some problems regarding instructors and mentors. Well, we did our best together with the ministry. We developed an instructor training program which was recently approved by the minister. The territorial distribution of dual education, the territorial scope rather, you see that in regions where there are no strong companies, as the northern western region, we were unable to open there any dual education classes because of the underdeveloped industries. These are all the professions, polymechanic, electricians, cooks, gas technician, interest towards polymechanic, CNC, mechanic is really great. What about these 170 companies involved in the Domino project, where Her Excellency, the Swiss ambassador, already mentioned that most of them are Bulgarian, and 42 of them are big companies, 30 are middle-sized, and 28% are small-sized companies. Our expectation was that predominantly big companies will be able to afford the expenses, the costs, but it is not so. By industries, well, machine building, energy, industrial, electronic, transport technologies, etc. According to their origin, 81% of the companies are Bulgarian and 19% are foreign companies, and this is also in contrast to our initial expectation when we expected mainly foreign companies to get involved because they were aware of the system. But now Bulgarian companies show great interest. Thanks to the support of the Minister of Education, we were able to introduce some regulatory amendments that affect the Labor Code, VAT Act, Health Insurance Act, and the Ordinance on Work-Based Training, thanks to which various issues regarding employment contracts with students were regulated. Employers training was introduced in terms of health insurance because employers have to pay health insurance contributions for their apprentices, and the decision was that the state budget will cover these health care contributions. I'm not going to focus so much on work with stakeholders because it was the Swiss-Bulgarian Trade Chamber that was mostly involved in doing and promoting this, but there will be a separate presentation to this end, and they will tell you how we worked with the businesses, with the companies, the work of the dual education forum, etc. The good news is that after the Dual Education Forum completed its work, we convinced the Minister of Education to have the counseling, the advisory council on VAT at the Minister of Education and Science as a permanent body. There are several communication channels and publicity channels that the Domino project maintains, Facebook page, internet page as well, and something which is, so to say, not that well known. I told you that today we introduced for the first time this practical manual on dual education. 2 years ago, an assessment of the Domino project was made, and the consultants proposed that at the end of the project we leave a kind of trace, a tangible trace, something that will be used as a source of information on various issues regarding dual education. And the Domino project team developed such a manual. It comprises of several sections. The first section is dedicated to the regulatory foundation, where we describe all the laws regarding VAT. In our case, this is the Preschool and School Education Act, the Vocational Education and Training Act, the Labor Code, the Ordinance on Work-Based Training, and the Instructor Training Program. The second section is dedicated to description of all institutions involved in dual education, and also all their functions are listed there. This is very useful because sometimes we hear from institutions, well, this is not my job. But now, according to the law, many institutions have functions and responsibilities regarding education, and more specifically dual education. And we mean here the Ministry of Education, the Advisory Council on VAT to the Ministry of Education, regional education departments, the national NAVET, the municipalities, employers' organizations, and employees' organizations. The next important section in the practical manual is dedicated to the role and responsibility of the school in the dual education system. Here, in big detail, we describe the whole process, starting with planning enrollment of students in the dual education system, interaction and cooperation with the companies, partners, learning process organization, and the role of the so-called teacher methodologist. The next section describes the rights and obligations of the students in the dual education system. How the student applies, how the student selects a company, what type of employment contract can be signed, what type of remuneration is that student entitled to, and what are the healthy and safe working conditions. This is all very important because during meetings with parents, we often receive questions regarding the rights and obligations of the students. That's why we decided to have such a section included in the practical manual. The next section is dedicated or kind of directed towards the companies. Because here all rights and obligations of the companies are listed, starting with application for student admission, distribution of students, types of employment contracts, also what is the procedure vis-a-vis the labor inspectorate. We heard from the sociological research that this procedure vis-a-vis the labor inspectorate is very long, is very tedious. That's why we described it here step by step in order to assist employers. Next subsection is the very organization of the practical work, and also the role of the instructor. One more section is included, but unfortunately we have not been able to achieve great progress with the ministry under this, because we developed the methodological steps for the elaboration of curricula with the participation of business representatives. The steps themselves are the situational profile, qualificational profile. Based on them, the state educational standard, and from the state educational standard, curricula and based on that, and syllabi, and based on that, the national examination programs. We wanted this whole procedure to be part of the formal documents of the Ministry of Education, so that this becomes part of the vocational education training in general. There are requirements for the number of representatives of the businesses who participate in this process. Well, unfortunately, we were unable to achieve great progress there, but we have included this in the practical manual in the hope that the ministry in the future will reconsider this proposal and find its proper place in the legislation. Something else that we have not been able to achieve great progress either, but this is not a failing or disadvantage, because we need more data, so to say. These schools and students involved represent no more than 32% of all schools and students in the country. Hopefully, after the amended regulatory basis enters into force, things will change and there will be serious quality assurance, because we don't have any independent body that really monitors quality in education, and more specifically quality at the workplace. This is very important, and this is a kind of gap that needs to be addressed. This was just half of our manual, and then it contains samples of all application forms or documents, a template of the instructor training program, then a template of admission application, also a sample partnership agreement between companies and school, a sample application, student application, then the logbook, a sample logbook for practical training, and also a sample employment contract with students. From now on, this practical manual is available also on the internet side of the Domino project. You can see the link here. And in the next days, it will be also uploaded on the website of the Ministry of Education. Thank you very much for your attention. That was all I wanted to share with you at that point.
Разбира се, ако имате въпроси и бихте желали нещо да...
If you have questions, you can ask them now. Oh, we have a question. We need a mic. Sorry, I need a mic in order to be able to interpret. Just wait a second, please. Good morning. This is Ms. Takeva, the head of the Teachers' Trade Union. Good morning, colleagues. Ms. Evtimova, dear social partners and guests, it's a great pleasure for me to take the floor now, because throughout the project I've represented the Confederation of Independent Trade Unions in Bulgaria, International Coordination Group for project implementation. I would like to congratulate the leaders and you, Ms. Evtimova, in person, and your whole team for doing the impossible, and implement all this. So now, today, we've had this reminiscence as if we saw it as a movie of all these years. I'd like to thank every principal that took this to heart, this venture, and became a pioneer to overcome stereotypes and attitudes in order to make this happen. I have several questions, and allow me to take you back in time. I have a question for Mr. Semyonov from Gallup, and for you, Ms. Evtimova. Mr. Semyonov, you've always been a brilliant sociologist. Your company is always very close to the truth. Thank you for this very thorough survey. I was impressed by your main conclusions. I'm convinced that that these conclusions are relevant because what we carried out in our coordination group, we made a lot of conclusions ourselves related to the organization of DTE in a company. But when I spoke with you in person, I realized that you have carried out a survey and interviewed companies and employers that were not involved in VET or DTE. This is why it'll be very interesting if you can share the main conclusions, the main findings, if you have made a survey among those employers that did participate in the Domino project, because we've had a plethora of proposals, and I suppose some of them were already incorporated in the legal amendments, but we have another list of proposals, and I think we should continue pushing in order to offer tax benefits, tax incentives for the companies that are involved in DTE. They have to make investments for upgrading and updating the equipment. They should offer scholarships to apprentices. They should pay them salaries, and they have a lot of expenses on the students, on apprentices, so they should not be taxed with a corporate tax. And another proposal that I have is for the commercial chambers to be the controlling authorities that should monitor quality implementation and the quality learning process, learning in company practice. And a problem that I have raised with the Minister of Education, once the project is over, I would like our colleagues from Switzerland to continue this project because it's unique. It's a unique project for Bulgaria. It's a project that gave a great impetus on learning by doing. So no matter what kind of traditions we've had in the past, now there are so many new developments related to social and economic development, so many new professions that are in demand by the workforce, by the labor market. We need you so badly now. We need you because, as put at the beginning by Mr. Ivanov, we are now transforming the labor market. We have artificial intelligence. and we have digitization. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the comment. I wanted to emphasize all the achievements, and I am part of this. This is why I believe that we should continue working. This project should be extended in order to cover new professions, new specialties, because we should pave the way for them too in our VT. This is something that I proposed to the minister, and I have this proposal for you, Ms. Evtimova. I think discussions and negotiations should be held in order to extend this project, and the VET Directorate of the Ministry of Education and Science should take its obligations in Ordinance 12 so that you could continue implementing this project. For the sake of the interpreters, we need a microphone. As soon as the data have been aggregated, we will continue with carrying out a survey among those companies that have been involved in the Domino project. So the data will be submitted to the project in the next couple of weeks, and based on the needs and the obligations of the project, they will be publicly announced. But then, only then could we provide the data behind those findings. So there should be also a verification of the databases. And I said it's something that I did not mean as courtesy. Sometimes such projects are formalistic. There is a lot of dust in the air. But in this project, this is not the case. I'm a skepticist by nature. And I think it's a kind of skepticism that keeps me alert. So I showed the statements of the companies that were not involved in the project, because they give us the big picture. They give us a generalized attitude. One of the defects of the mentality of companies is that they do not make a great difference between dual-track education and apprenticeship or internship, because this is a different procedure in Bulgaria. They see the latter as very formalistic. As a person who runs a company myself, I've always I also had this issue of making the difference between apprenticeship through dual-track education and apprenticeship of the way we have it in Bulgaria. So these are two different channels. There is a curriculum, a syllabus, and it's solid. But I will publish the data soon. And let me elaborate. The assignment that we gave to Gallup was to survey 500 companies that were not involved and 120 that were involved. We wanted this presentation to cover those that did not participate, because in the next two panels you will hear views of the employers that were involved in the project. And what are the next steps? The Ministry of Education and Science has decided to make a new project under operational program Science for Intelligent Growth. We have this arrangement with the ministry experts that the Domino team will be involved in drafting the this new project so that it can be as close as possible to what has been achieved so far under the Domino project. Thank you. We move on with the next panel. We've called it Partnership as a Key to Success, the Bulgarian and the Swiss experience. This panel includes representatives of very valuable and significant partners, the SVIVET, the Ministry of Education and Science, and the Bulgarian Swiss Commercial Chamber, Trade Chamber. And we also have a CEO, a school principal, and we're going to talk about the experience gained. Allow me to first invite Mr. Eric Svars from SVIVET, Head of International Relations. He will deliver a brief presentation as a start of this panel.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really a great honor for me to be here today, and on behalf of the Swiss Federal Institute for Vocational Education and Training, I would like to thank you very much, and at the same time also congratulate for the success of this project. In 2015, I had the chance to assist the official launch of the Domino project here in Sofia with the former Bulgarian Minister of Education and Research and with the State Secretary of Education in Switzerland. So I discussed with the apprentices of the first dual class. I think it was the milk technicians, and I remember when I talked to them, I looked in their eyes, there was a lot of hope and curiosity in the dual training because it was something new, but also at the same time some kind of uncertainty due to the lack of experiences and due to the lack of reputation also. So 4 years later, we can see the results, and I would like to say that this project is a huge success, and SVIVET is active in a lot of international projects, and I would say it's really one of the best projects SVIVET collaborated with. So the Swiss Federal Institute of VET was one of the main expertise partners in the project and has been involved in the project from the very beginning. As Switzerland's experts organization for the development of vocational education and training, SVIVET provides pedagogical training for the teachers, the trainers, and examiners. It's doing research, supports the development of curricula, and provides its expertise in international cooperation projects. Actually, by the way, this is also an official mandate of the Swiss Confederation. So you see here some international partnerships. In each project, the context is different. But, yeah, and you will see also, I don't know, yeah, India, for example. You will hear something about this afternoon. But always one thing is crucial in these different contexts. It is the public-private partnership. So in the Domino project, we followed kind of a holistic approach with all these different activities. So what is important at the end of the training, of the apprenticeship, is that the young people have the competencies, so the skills, the knowledge, the attitudes that are needed by the labor market, so by the companies. So each year, 2 to 3 professions have been developed in a dual way, starting with the adaptation of the training plans to a dual and situation-based training. And here, of course, it was mentioned, It is a challenge, but it's really important that the companies have been involved. Based on this curricula, the teachers in the schools have been trained, as well as the trainers, the instructors in the companies, and finally also the examiners. And at the same time also the trainers of the trainers, so the dual Bulgarian dual track experts who provide then the training to, of course, ensure the sustainability of the project. Yeah, in total, SWIVET collaboration consisted of around about 380 days of training and expertise in these almost 5 years, with 5 experts and trainers involved: Rachel, Martin, Mergim, Thomas, and Hans-Peter, who is also here, and he will share the experience that he had in this project this afternoon. Though, as mentioned, the involvement of all the stakeholders is very important, and this is just the overview of the partnership in Switzerland. So there's the public-private partnership between the state, the regional authorities, the cantons or the schools, and the companies, the professional associations. And in Switzerland, actually, this is the first article in the law. But, and then I come already to the success factors of this transfer of dual elements. But a law is not, how do you say, public-private partnership is not only based on a law. What is important is the mutual trust between the partners. So the law is one side, but then the daily life, the mutual trust, this is very crucial for this kind of implementation. Yeah, there are a few other success factors that we identified, and yeah, of course, it was also mentioned this morning. I think there is also a lot of patience that is needed because it is something new, and this is also linked to the reputation of apprenticeship of the VT system, and this takes also a lot of time. I think there are very good results in these 4 years, but I think you have to continue on this way. And as I said, yeah, Domino is one of the best projects we will collaborate it, but I think, yeah, there's one challenge of sustainability is remaining. So the end of this project must not mean, of course, the end of the activities. It is important that the dual tech programs will be pursued and institutionalized in order to ensure this sustainability. In any case, on behalf of SWIVET, I would like to thank again all the partners involved in this project. It was really, and it is still, a great pleasure to work with you. So thank you very much for your attention.
Благодарим на господин Сварс.
Thank you, Mr. Svars. Take your seat, please.
Бих искал да поканя тук за разговор.
Now I would like to invite here Mr. Vasil Radoinovsky from the Bulgarian Swiss Chamber of Commerce, head of the Secretariat. Mr. Oleg Stoilov, chairperson of the Board of the Trade and Industry Chamber of Stara Zagora, and Mr. Konstantin Kostadinov, principal of the VET School for Architecture and Wood Processing in Plovdiv. While we are attending to the technical equipment, I would like just to ask you to start this discussion with a very brief introduction of what this project means for you. Maybe I should start with Mr. Radojnovski. After this panel, we are going to have a lunch break, and after the lunch break, we'll continue with the afternoon sessions. I have been part of this project from the very beginning, and for me, to a great extent, the success of the project happened thanks to the cooperation with Bulgarian and Swiss experts, of course, but also because we were able to create good conditions for the participation of all stakeholders from the very beginning. And we, as the Bulgarian Swiss Chamber of Commerce, were able to offer great assistance in this regard. On the one hand, there were good results, good transfer of knowledge and skills from Switzerland to Bulgaria. On the other hand, the institutions, the trade unions, the employers' organizations, the experts, the companies, well, they were all involved in a very successful process directed to the achievement of positive results. Mr. Stoilov, few words on your part. I've been part of the business system for a long time as a chairperson of the Bulgarian Trade Chamber in Stara Zagora. Well, before this project, we had communication with all VT schools in Stara Zagora. We were looking to address and solve problems of the companies. But the Domino project contributed with something very important, with something of key significance, and that was partnership. Based on the partnership, we were able to achieve what we achieved. In the absence of partnership, nothing could have happened. What is our practice in Stara Zagora? Well, we consider it unique. We hope that it will be adopted as a best practice in this regard. This was just as an introductory remark on my part. Mr. Kostadinov, few words like a general assessment, general evaluation. Well, my personal evaluation is very high. We've been working with the businesses for a long time, since 2001, 2002, but it was the Domino project that gave us the directions, the regulatory framework, that enabled us to introduce dual-track education. Mr. Radojnovski, I'm back to you. Can you give us some more details? I know you played key role in various formats for cooperation and interaction between all stakeholders. Can you tell us more about these various formats, so to say, or various structures? Well, I'm grateful to the previous speakers because they underlined the importance of partnership. Partnership, however, is based on trust. And throughout this period, we tried to create trust between all stakeholders. We initially started with institutionalization of the dual education forum. This was developed, the whole concept was developed on the Swiss methodology, adapted to the Bulgarian conditions. The whole thing is a structured process, looking for consensus, trying to find solutions to important issues and achieving specific results. This advisory council, this forum on dual education, which involved more than 80 representatives of the stakeholders for 2 years. They developed specific proposals and recommendations to the various institutions. And I'm convinced that to a great extent it was thanks to the efforts of the Dual Education Forum that lots of these legal amendments were adopted in the Labor Code, specifically in the VAT Act, and so on and so forth. This was a direct outcome, but the most important result was that based on this, we were able to come up with a core of people who are same thinkers, who consider the introduction of dual education in Bulgaria very important. So if you ask me what is the biggest outcome, was that when I entered this conference hall in the morning, I understood that I know everyone here. And I think this is the best condition for the future implementation of dual education in Bulgaria. There is already a core of people, a team of people who have the knowledge, the practical experience, and the skills and competencies, and moreover, they know one another and they can continue forward. The work of the Forum on Dual Education was transferred to the Advisory Council at the Minister of Education and Science. There is a specific directorate on VAT at the ministry, and we interact with all people at the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Healthcare, and Ministry of Economy. We work together with them. We meet one another in informal environment as well, and we know Oleg, great friends with Konstantin as well. We have fast communication, which enables us to find the right solution in a speedy manner. Mr. Simeonov earlier mentioned the term networking, because that's how the young people think today. And you've been talking about the same, networking, creating a community, in direct, informal contacts. So, Mr. Stoilov, can you tell us more about your work in Stara Zagora? Because the town of Stara Zagora, for those who don't know the place, has been very active in the introduction of this model. Well, thank you for this evaluation. I hope this is very objective. I'll try briefly to share with you the road to success, if this is the right way to put it. The outcome. We have 6 VAT schools that enroll students in the dual education. 4 are under the Domino project, and 2 are outside the project, which means sustainable interest. There are 3 more gymnasiums that are showing interest. But if we go back 4 years ago, we find a way to unite all stakeholders, the regional education department, local authorities, the businesses, the school. We sat together and started explaining to one another what dual education means. We were not clear at that point, but to us it sounded interesting, thanks to the efforts of the Domino project team and the Bulgarian Swiss Chamber of Commerce. We organized numerous meetings. That's how we understood what it means. We addressed issues together and found solutions. And something which was pointed out earlier during the presentation on the research carried, that someone from the businesses said, well, apprentices are a burden to us. Well, no, this is nonsense. We cannot expect to have high quality education if the business is not closely involved. And I think that already happened in Stara Zagora. Around the VT schools, we already have kind of clusters of sustainable partnerships. They're kind of contagious. They infect the other VT schools as well. We use the media to promote the information. We have various tools, and there is a unique vocational event that we organize in Stara Zagora called Fair, VT Fair. And there, the VT schools exhibit together with the companies. The last event was organized in the street so that the citizens were invited to talk, to see, to learn more. I think this is part of the success formula. And another thing, the open door days, something that we use efficiently. Year on year, every company that has such, more and more companies join this whole idea of open door days. The parents, the potential students can visit, and some of them were really impressed. They didn't expect to see such state-of-the-art technologies. And we underline that we compete in terms of high technology. That's how the world goes right now. There are many opportunities to promote vocational education, and dual vocational education is an important tool in that respect. Okay, so we said some good words about Stara Zagora. Now let's hear Plovdiv. I am going to quote one of the respondents in the survey who said that maybe the various professions, specialties should be given new names, kind of more modern, trendy names. What do you think about this? Well, I am in front of such an audience at such high-profile conference for the first time. But I can compare dual education to love. On the one hand, you have the business. On the other hand, the school. And in love, who is the leading partner? Well, it is the female part. And if I continue with this comparison, without us, without the VET schools, it wouldn't have happened. What it used to be before? Well, the business, the company said, well, you don't teach them anything, and the school said, well, when we send them to you as apprentices, you send them to buy you beers. But now the picture is completely different. For 10 years, I have myself worked in a company, and now for 20 years, I'm part of the vocational education system. My impression is that this is a working plan. Vocational education is very important. That's what the authorities in Switzerland do. They first try to qualify, to educate professionals for manufacturing, for their industries. And that's how the economy works. In the beginning, in Plovdiv, we had only two VTs. Now we have almost five. In the ninth grade, we have and now I'm submitting a new request for enrollment or application for enrollment. We also have some new specialties as polygraphy, for example. the business understood that they cannot move forward if they're understaffed. As regards names of professions, pompous new names, well, I don't think this is necessary. Well, furniture production is furniture production. Why should we change the name? The spade should be called the spade. Still, you mentioned that you are satisfied with your relations with the businesses, but maybe the businesses still don't understand the difference between dual education and internship. Well, for example, with the mattress producers company that we organized joint meeting. They supported us in various projects. We developed together the curricula and the syllabi. So representatives of the company, together with teachers, sat down and developed this curriculum. They already understand the essence of dual education, and the students now understand that this is not a joke. It's not as it used to be with the internship. Two of my graduates came over to me just a few days ago and asked me whether I can support them to continue working for the TED company. Well, this is good, isn't it? That's what we also saw during our study trip to Switzerland. 10 years ago, we neglected vocational education. We almost destroyed it, but luckily, things have changed. Now, I would like to encourage the audience, if you have any specific question or remark, you're more than welcome to raise it. Well, for this 4 years of Domino project, the overall assessment is positive, but everyone mentioned more challenges or difficulties, things that need to be overcome. So what are the difficulties? What is still to be resolved? Well, it is true that what we heard in the first presentation was mainly the opinion of companies that are not involved in the dual education. That's why they are not the best to be quoted. We are looking forward to see the results of the and responses of the companies involved in the dual education. In the beginning, we had problems that we had no programs, no syllabi, no contracts, nothing. There was just enthusiasm, but we harnessed this enthusiasm. One of the most important factors to help us solve the problem in the region of Stara Zagora was that we had the first VET, the first VET that introduced the dual education system for the first time. This was the VET school in Kazanlak. They already have the first graduates there, and hopefully we'll continue in the same line. Every year, as part of this fair on VET, we organize a roundtable. Problems are discussed, summarized, and then directed to the specific institutions that can help resolve them. Thanks to the Domino project, the partners of the Bulgarian Swiss Chamber of Commerce, we've been able to resolve many of these problems. Now we have more or less everything put in order. It looks like a sustainable system, all the necessary documents, applications, and so on.
Back to you, Mr. Radoinovsky. What's next? What should we focus on now? Thank you for this question. Yes, indeed. we are now celebrating an end, quite a positive one, but it's only the first couple of steps. Because if you consider that each year of the project marked a step forward. From my point of view, as an organization, as a representative of an organization of employers, I would like to say that a lot of work is ahead of us, and the main challenge, as I see it, is for the system to be driven forward and run by the companies themselves. Our educational system in Bulgaria has been based on the state management of VET. And Mr. Semyonov's survey mentioned all those references to the past. And the positive experience of the past and the current positive experience is that in the past, the owner of both the companies and the schools was the same. It was the government. Now, we have to make sure that the positive experience gained from many countries should be adjusted to the Bulgarian context. We have different employers nowadays. They have different requirements, different capacity. And you saw it on the domino map. There are regions that are highly industrialized and others which are not. I'm convinced that the Bulgarian business, until the Bulgarian business sees the benefits in that and adjust its processes in such a way so that it can benefit from the education of students at school, before they even come to the company, we won't be successful. So this was a pilot project only. No matter if there will be financing provided by the operational program, Education for Intelligent Growth. Let's hope that there will be financial support lent by Switzerland. We should continue working very hard and make sure that there are companies that can implement this kind of training approach locally. And of course, from there on, the ministry, the VET Institute that we worked with very well should do their part of the job. But the Bulgarian practice indicates that if there is no pressure from grassroots, and if the businesses themselves do not say how helpful this is, then we will not be able to boast any sustainability. Mr. Svars, you've been following the discussion, I suppose. We've been talking about the specific Bulgarian features and what has been achieved and what is yet to come. What does Bulgaria look like seen from outside in this part of the world?
Thank you for this question. Well, as I said, so from our experience, we are active in all over the world in different cooperation projects. Yeah, and as I said, would really say the Bulgarian project, the Domino project, is really a success because it was mentioned the whole morning that it is based on trust and based on the partnership of these different actors. And yeah, maybe let me just add that it was mentioned also the role of this forum, this dual forum, and for me, it has really a crucial role. And when I participated in the first forum, it was 2015. There were a lot of teachers standing up and discussing. Yeah, they have some fear to lose their job, to have less work hours, and so on. And now I saw the representative of the trade union here, and it was another expression, another output. And I see this dialogue. It is challenging, but it's very, very fruitful. So I think Yeah, this is a very important thing. And so we are also in an African context, in Senegal, for example. And yeah, the first thing also we try to organize is this kind of round table or forum. And sometimes all the stakeholders, they say, oh, it's the first time we speak together. And I think this is already the first very important thing. And it was mentioned this morning, okay, there is this river between the sides, and already just to build the bridge, to talk to each other is already very crucial.
Използвам възможността, че
I'd like to use the opportunity of having stakeholders from each part of partnership. So is there something that is still a concern for you? Is there something that should be further developed in order to meet your requirements? Of course, there are companies that are highly reserved. Why do you think they have it? Why are they so reserved? Maybe because they lack information. The more information is disseminated through such events or otherwise will change their attitudes. Businesses should be looking for novelties, for innovations, and I think our experience has indicated how useful DT is for companies, and let's hope that will not go backwards. I think we have laid the sustainable foundations, and the business companies should participate actively because investments are essential. And let me say something very recent. On Friday, we held a roundtable in Stara Zagora of all stakeholders with the Bulgarian Swiss Chamber of Commerce to stick together what we could do for the future of this project. Let's hope Domino 2 will come soon. Let's hope that we will have it in the first place, but we should get to the formula that Vasco referred to. We need to have the business, the schools, and the educational institutions. Let's hope that the framework at the national level be utilized. How can VET schools adjust as adequately as possible without being an expert in that? I suppose in architecture and furniture making, new technologies are invading those sectors. They have new requirements. The workforce is giving way to the high technological makeup. Let me boast that by end of July, the first CNC center will be installed in our school, thanks to the Domino project. And my view is that the enrollment plan by region and by cities should be the starting point. And the regional governor and the mayor should know what kind of companies are located in their territory, what kind of workforce will be in demand. And the school masters should not be angry with us. They should, the language schools should enroll fewer students to the benefit of VETs, because the businesses miss workers. And technologies, especially in polygraphy or furniture making, there is equipment in place, there are technologies in place, but there is no one to use them. In grade 11 and grade 12, our apprentices have hands-on experience, and they learn so much more than what they are taught in school. And now our curriculum syllabi are drawn up together by both companies and schools. So we need to have more freedom and less inspections, fewer inspections from the regional inspectorates of health, of education. So should the companies hire apprentices, and VETs should attract companies to open their businesses in the region? It's a it's a two-way street, because the students graduating from a school will be hired by the companies nearby. I fully support this train of thought. I am more knowledgeable about the business side of it. So what should be done with respect to the businesses? I think trust is essential. There are areas in which, in the same city, employers do not communicate with principals. Sometimes we had cases in which principals find it easier to arrange a meeting via the Domino PMU rather than contact the company manager who works next door. So the users of those educated students should act as moderators. There was such a case in Sevlievo. However, the local businesses are not so well organized locally, and this makes it even more difficult because the companies that work with the VETs have good trust, but the critical mass of local business is too small to provide for a whole class of dual-track education. So DT in Sofia looks very different from what it looks locally in a small town. So it's not a sprint; it's a marathon. The first step is trust and good communication, and the businesses will be more active when they set up such an organization on site so that they could work actively with those apprentices and recognize that the contribution of companies are not a matter of corporate social responsibility. It's not a donation. It's not charity. It is joint work to the best interest of all parties, and we should not be ashamed of working in our best interest, because if the businesses achieve what is of interest to them, it will be of the best interest to everyone else. So we mentioned Stara Zagora as being so excellent, but still, let's consider what regional business formations and diasporas look like. What is communication inside of them? I'm not going to talk about employee organizations at the national level. Let me tell you the regional Stara Zagora practice. We work very well in Stara Zagora. We've realized that partnership is a tool and a key to success. So we work together. And I don't want to repeat myself, we've been implementing all this together. This is why recently we held a meeting with an employer club, a unique organization for Stara Zagora, apart from the nationally recognized employer organizations. We are seeking specific solutions. Everyone presents their strengths. We don't want to duplicate, we just want to merge our strengths together to the best interest of the region. Businesses are active, and I think those companies that wish to develop, they should change their attitude to education. They should have a partnership attitude, but they should also communicate with each other. Without having such clusters, we can't move on. I learned the Swiss example. Businesses there make their own infrastructure for training that would meet all the needs of the region, and they offer training to many specialties. Linzbruck, a small 10,000 population city, they have 32 specialties, and they have They have a single training facility, which makes the economy of scale. So it is easy for the companies, but if the companies themselves are not active, if they are not demanding, they will not be able to resolve their own issue of shortage of workforce. Ladies and gentlemen, this discussion is open for the floor too. We've delineated what the big picture is like, what has been done, what is to be done. If you have comments or views you'd like to share, please do. Now, nobody wants to take the floor. On the contrary, there is someone who, Ms. Takeva, or maybe a good moderator herself. My name is Tanya Stoichev, the principal of Henry Ford VET on transport and energy in Sofia. As far as the Domino project is concerned, I think there is no river flowing, cutting through our territory. We have the bridge in place, but we should all be active, not only the companies, the schools too. It's surprising that there are principals of VETs that refuse dual-track education, although the companies themselves propose that to them. This year, we have 2 classes of DT graduating in 2 specialties. Last year, we had the first class of gas technicians. We have 4 classes in grade 10. We have 5 classes in grade 9, and we are going to enroll 7 new classes in DT out of 11 classes altogether. I suppose in 2 years we'll have only DTE classes enrolled. It's modern, not only because it's fashionable, because it's requested by the company. We now find it hard to meet the demands of the business, to meet their requests for specialties, both in terms of number of students that wanted to be enrolled in the standard classes, but also in the DT classes for their summer in company practice. A reserve that we have is that if a class was not enrolled in the DT channel, it can be transferred after the first year. Or in grade 11, they can sign their employment contracts with the companies. We've had this option for 4 years now. This year will be our 5th. Because a period of 5 years of you have no guarantee that the demand for the business will be the same at the time of graduation. But if they are given the chance to switch in their second year, then the demand is much more up to date. So and also the companies can monitor their performance personally, and this year we have 100% employment contracts offered to apprentices. So there is no river. There is maybe just a small, narrow street. So this is the future. If we want our economy to be up and running, if we want to have highly qualified education, the answer is dual-track education. And information awareness campaign with respect to enrollment and persuading parents is essential because there are many parents who are not convinced that the Bulgarian economy is at this high technological level. In automobile transport, they think their child will be up to the years in lubrication. This is no longer the case. And also the high pay. The salaries are very high, and we don't need to send our kids to wash the dishes in Europe for 1,000 euro a month. Thank you. That was very much to the point. Mr. Kostadinov, we expect the minister to join in. Is there a requirement for a change, for a legislative change? Do you need some specific legal amendments? I can't say off the top of my head. I'm a member of the consultative board, and there we present our views and the proposals. There may be proposals for legal amendments for greater freedom and flexibility. The system is sluggish, so maybe this is what we should do. And as Minister Radonovsky put it, we can't have a whole class in a whole batch of all classes from a single year to be involved in DT. Maybe only a group of a class. This discussion is an illustration of the scale. First, a lot should be discussed, and we should continue working hard. We have filled up our 45 minutes of the panel, and let's end up with a short movie developed by the in Stara Zagora. It's a trailer, rather, as the modern word goes. So it is only a trailer to the big movie. So my apologies for those we want. So will be shown in the big movie. So those of you who participated in the movie should not be worried. They will appear in the longer version. So a message for the minister before we run this movie. The keys to success were that a mechanism of dialogue between all stakeholders was established. It all started with a forum, and it continues. I will remember Ms. Takeva, after one of the forum, she said, "I learned something from you. Patience and persistence is needed." In the fourth year, we can say that there is a mechanism for dialogue in place, and the mechanisms that will come up will be discussed further, and so that to the best solution that will serve all stakeholders. So the message for the minister is for this dialogue to continue to persist. Dialogue, attitudes, this is essential, and this is the greatest achievement. So I would like to thank the panelists now and allow you to enjoy the movie. And after that, we will break for lunch and we will reconvene with the next panel. I hope that you find all this interesting.
Сега филма.
Dual education for the modern requirements of the society. Okay, so there are subtitles on the video in English, available in English as well.
Да потърсят кариера в чужбина, загуби се и желанието на младите хора да учат в професионални гимназии. Проект Домино, финансиран по българо-швейцарската програма за сътрудничество, си постави преди 5 години амбициозната цел да възстанови доверието в професионалното образование в България чрез прилагане на модела на дуално обучение, базиран на най-добрите практики в Швейцария. И заедно с това да подготви учители и наставници, за да може след приключването на проекта постигнатото да бъде прилагано в цялата страна.
Проектът многократно надхвърли целите си, защото първоначално беше заложено да бъде пробван модела на дуално обучение в 10 училища в страната, но към края на проекта имаме 32 професионални гимназии, които участват в страната с над 1600 ученика в 19 български града.
По проекта Домино в Стара Загора работят 3 училища, а професионална гимназия Иван Хаджиенова в Казанлък е първата в България, която въведе дуалното обучение по проекта.
Имаше, разбира се, в началото притеснения от страна на ученици и родители. От 2016 година до днес надграждаме знанията и уменията на учениците, приема се все с голямо желание и успехите са на лице.
Първите ученици, обучаващи се по проекта Домино, завършиха средното си образование през 2017 година и намериха своята професионална реализация.
Аз бях на практика в Global Colleges България и след като завърших, имах предложение да остана там и разбира се, аз приех.
Фирмите партньори заявиха отново желание за приемане на ученици в тази форма на обучение.
Акцентът, че професионалното образование е нещо, което бяхме позабравили в последните 20 години и 30 даже може би. Акцента трябва да го има и той трябва да се възвърне много бързо и държавата, не само бизнеса, следва да вземе необходимите мерки, които да стимулират интереса към дуалното обучение, да стимулират бизнеса да продължи да подкрепя образованието.
Търговско-промишлена палата Стара Загора от години работи активно за адекватното синхронизиране на необходимите за бизнеса кадри и специалности, които професионалните гимназии трябва да обучат.
Проектът Домино създаде рамките, създаде възможностите и проектът Домино начерта перспективите за развитието на внедряването в дуалното обучение. Но наистина е необходимо както професионалното образование като цяло, така и дуалното обучение да станат национална приоритетна политика.
Enterprises, business, schools and ministries, authorities have to work really together in order to adequately train and educate the youngster. Our Bulgarian Swiss program was really helping in developing this systemic cooperation between the different actors, and I hope that it will now continue after the end of this program.
Проектът Домино допринесе за повишаване на доверието към професионалното образование.
Аз съм много доволен и смятам да продължа даже да изучавам готварството. Ми харесва. Мисля, че бързо напредваме.
Препоръчвам на по-малките, които са все още в ранна възраст, да мислят за напред, да се записват в елитно училище като Иван Хадженов. Доволен съм, че съм ученик на ПГ Иван Хадженов и участвам в програмата Домино.
Успешните резултати, следствие от прилагането на проекта Домино в български училища, доведоха и до законодателни промени, с които дуалното обучение в България се въвежда като устойчив модел в образователната система.
След един час продължаваме. Благодаря ви.